Okay, let's get started. Couple of housekeeping items first before we get rolling. Number one, today's session is going to be recorded. So both the session, the recording, and the presentation will be available within 24 hours. The second item is that everyone in the call or the session has been muted. So if you have any questions, please use the chat that you've got on your window, and we've got a group of panelists that will be able to answer or help you with any questions that you might have. So one more thing before we get started, I want to thank you, every single one of you, for joining the webinar today. My name is Andoni Salvador, and I'm from NTT. And with me, I've got the talented Ashram Matin from Cisco. How are you today?
I'm great, thank you. Andoni, how are you?
I'm very good, thank you. Very excited to be here with you
today.
Yeah,
same. I'm very excited to be here too.
Excellent.
Awesome.
All right, so we are aware that some of you joining us today might know already about SD-WAN and some of the benefits that this technology brings to the IT industry. So I want to set up a bit of an agenda so we know where we're going to be and where we're heading throughout the session, and then we'll get started. First thing, we're going to do a quick introduction around SD-WAN. We're then going to cover an architecture overview, and follow from that, we're going to do a demonstration so we can actually put together those pieces that we covered around the architecture. And we're going to move into then, after the demonstration, into a quick customer success story. And most important of all, we're going to wrap up the session by talking to you and explaining to you why NTT and Cisco when it comes to the value proposition that we bring when it comes to SD-WAN. Today is also about showcasing the strong relationship and partnership between NTT with its 20 years of experience delivering network services within Australia and Cisco Systems, the world leader in IT and networking, and how we are together empowering businesses in Australia to embark their digital transformation journey with confidence by leveraging the power of secure SD-WAN. So let's get started. Now, there are many definitions out there around what SD-WAN is. If we look at the acronym itself, like any other acronym in IT, we can just, span that, and it's software-defined what area of networking. There's also another definition there on the screen. And again, there's many definitions floating out there on the web, in brochures, and so on and so forth. But we like to simplify it a little bit more. So what is SD-WAN? If you look at these three key components in its core, if we grab simplicity, security, and quality, and we combine them with a new way of doing networking, then SD-WAN is a simple, secure way of routing traffic with a quality of experience that is as good or even better than traditional wide area networking. So let's talk about a little bit about the traditional wide area networking environment. The traditional way of doing networking was first established in the 90s when the term cloud was actually used to refer to the weather and not to talk about computing. If we look at the diagram that you've got on your screen at the moment, the old-fashioned way of doing networking is actually having all branches within a business or an enterprise connected using a private network method, in this case MPLS, and then every service and even the internet, it's all accessed through a data center or a combination of data centers. Now, the other thing that traditional network has is that when we want to make a change within a network, we actually rely on the carrier to make these changes. And I'm sure you've seen this in the industry, have you?
Yep, definitely. The thing is that previously this architecture was working because most of the applications that our customers were using were actually resided inside the data center. So as long as you have a connection to your data center, it works fine. But nowadays, things have changed, right? Things have totally changed. That the way we're using the application on the cloud, that's totally has changed. So we need now to move to something, an architecture that actually can support the changes.
And you actually mentioned a really good point there, the changes. So we have had this proliferation of hybrid cloud, mobility, and the Internet of Things. And just these three things have changed the landscape both for the consumer and the IT enterprise dramatically. If you look at the left of your on the left-hand side of your screen, we now have multiple ways of consuming data. People are rocking up into working environments with laptops, mobile phones, tablets, and most likely, and there will be more than in the case, that the operating system running on these devices might not be the same. We also have a broad range of different branches now. We've got small offices, home offices, we've got road warriors, we've got small branches, we've got partner branches, we've got headquarters, and we also have data centers or a combination of data centers. The other thing is that now we've got more mobile users, and they also need to consume the broad range of applications that we also have, and that we're showing some of them on the right-hand side. Now, I mentioned earlier, cloud was just a weather thing. Now, cloud could be either private or public. And now, when we look at about a private cloud environment, we've got multiple providers out there, and then there's also managed service providers that provide cloud services. And you need to make sure that you take the consumption of that data into these environments and back to the user without compromising performance. We also have an explosion on software as a service applications such as your Salesforce, Office 365, Dropbox, and the list goes on. The next big thing is the adoption of public cloud with Google Cloud, Microsoft Azure, and Amazon Web Services. So if we look at implementing or adopting these cloud environments and pushing our apps into the cloud using a traditional WAN topology like the one that I've mentioned earlier, then you can very quickly say that any user or any branch or any location will have to send all their traffic backhaul through the MPLS network into the data center, then from the data center access any or all of these different applications, public clouds and private clouds, and then that traffic will have to follow the same path until it reaches the end user. Plain and simple, we only care about moving packets based on the IP address, throw them in the queue, quality of service, and so on and so forth. Now, the way that we have addressed this in the past is that as we're consuming more applications or adopting cloud, we tend to be throwing bandwidth at the problem, and that's not a solution. That no longer is the solution because we're not ensuring that the end user has got an optimal experience when consuming the services. Also, in many locations and in many countries, MPLS is still a very expensive solution. So if we continue to throw bandwidth at the problem, what we're doing is increasing our operational cost. And again, we're not focusing on the application. The other thing is that, again, remaining in an MPLS pure environment leaves us always relying on the carrier, because any change that we want to do to adopt these quick deployments, these fast applications, we will still have a bottleneck because we have to wait on the carrier to do changes. So let's talk about why SD-WAN. If we go back to the traditional topology from a wide area networking perspective, we can now see that having bigger pipes is no longer a solution. So we need to adopt and leverage SD-WAN. And by doing this, we can actually combine now the pedigree of MPLS, but also combine it with internet, which prices are going down, and we've got a wide range of options available now. By combining these two, we can actually embark in a journey into the cloud with confidence and making sure that when we push our apps into the cloud, we know that we've got a solid network foundation and a network that in fact is ready for business. We don't rely on the carrier, we actually rely on what do we need to deploy, how do we deploy it, and how do we make sure that the end user is getting the best possible experience. So what makes SD-WAN? What makes SD-WAN happen? We're going to jump into it right now. And for that, I'm going to hand over to my colleague, Asher. So Ashraf, over to you.
All right, thanks, Andoni. So the conversation that we just now had is that like how we moved from a traditional architecture to a new architecture. So the main point over here that we always wanted to make sure is that three things that you have mentioned at the beginning. We need to make sure that it's simplified, and we need to make sure that the performance, the application performance, the end user performance, that's the key. And we need to make sure that that happens. And then the final thing that is everyone's concern is security. So these are the three pain points that actually SD-WAN covers. I mean, you can actually do the things that is out there and configure your network and do things like that to make sure that your organization is ready to move to the cloud consumption, but it becomes very complex and it becomes very error prone. So it becomes a very difficult thing to do. So now we need to do something that will be able to make us to do the transition, make us a digital ready organizations and businesses, because everything is moving really fast.
Perfect.
So now let's go and see like how technically we actually achieve this. So one of the things that I would like to mention is that like Cisco has been in this industry for a long period of time in routing, and we have been a very proven trusted vendor for routing platforms. So our ISR platforms is a very trusted platform out in the industry. And in the year 2017, we have acquired Viptela, so which was a provider for SD-WAN. So what we have done is that like we have added the industry's trusted platform ISR with the Viptela solution on top of it, and then made a solution that integrates well together and meets the need of our customers and makes them ready for the digital transformation. So how exactly we do it? So let's look at this way. So in a WAN network, you will have like multiple routers sitting at different branches, different geographical locations, and they might be connected to the internet or to the MPLS, and that's how it's connected. So now let's see in a network, let's put our shoes in a network administrator's point of view. So what they will do is that like they will go and log into each and every individual devices, if you see in the screen. So corporate HQ have a router, and then data center will have a router, and then any places will have a router, right? And then they will need to go in there, dig in, and then configure everything manually from there. So it's like box by box, configurations and implementation. So this becomes very complex, and this becomes something that becomes like more error prone, and that's how you actually, sacrifice your security, you expose your security vulnerabilities. So that's one of the key points that we have to assess. So now, how SD-WAN does it is that like it separates the control plane from the data plane. So where you actually put all the control plane in one place and then configure everything from the control plane and push it down all the way to the routers. So now, rather than seeing like tens, even hundreds, even though some of our customers actually have thousands of routers in their environment, so rather than configuring them like in 1,000 boxes, you're now configuring a single system in a very consistent way. And that actually brings in all the things together that we have just now talked. Simplicity is a simplicity for the network administrators to, whenever there is a business requirement and policy comes in, it's easier for them to move on there. And it's a performance because it's a system. It looks as all the routers work together as a system to make sure the performance of the applications are met. And finally, everyone's concern. It might be the CEO's concern. It might be the concern of the application user. It will be a concern of the network administrator, and that is security. So when you have a single consolidated platform to look at everything, you actually close down these security vulnerabilities. The attack surface actually becomes reduced, and you have more consistent performance on your platform. So that's how exactly we're going to do. So let's go into a bit more detail about it and how it is done. So you have like any locations, any branches, like it could be a cloud location, it could be your IaaS provider, it could be your Amazon provider, AWS provider, or your Azure provider. As long as you have access to that, you have a router there, it's covered. And you have mentioned about it that it's not about what we use, MPLS, internet, 4G, it doesn't matter. True. What it matters is the performance. What it matters is the security. Can we achieve those things? So Cisco SD-WAN makes it any transport. Like you can do things that you have to do through any transport that you have. You can have internet connection, you can have MPLS, you can have 4G, even T1, E1. Some of our customers are actually using T1, and that's supported. So as long as you have a connection, that's fine. That will be supported. And I was just now talked about the controllers, and then
Yeah.
you can deploy those controllers on your data center, or you can deploy those controllers in the Cisco's environment. So you'll be able to manage those things. So it provides. It's all about the applications. It's all about security. Those are the key things that we have kept in mind. So this platform gives you the ability to do that. So now I just wanted to highlight one point is that like even though this makes simplified, the underlying technologies like BGP, MPLS, those sort of things, IPsec, doesn't go away. It stays there. We just added a different layer on top of it, that's Viptela solution, that actually makes it more consumable and easier for our customers to achieve that. So whenever you're making a decision about going for SD-WAN and solutions like that, you have to consider that whether your foundation, the router itself, the core components are actually able to handle those sort of things or not. So that's one of the key things that we have to make sure that our customers have that in their environment before moving into that.
And I guess one of the key components of the Cisco SD-WAN, because there's so many SD-WAN providers out there, but a true SD-WAN architecture, its main building block should be the complete segmentation of what is the data plane, the control plane, and the management plane, right? Because what I've seen in the industry is that you might have some of those still confined within the box, and you're leveraging other functionalities, so it's not true SD-WAN.
Yeah.
Here we are talking about a true SD-WAN solution where every single component is completely separated from each other.
Yep, definitely. And then the component, the architectural way of doing things makes it more resilient. Like we can have a discussion about like, because you have a controller, you need to make sure that they are highly available and things like that. So those things comes into the picture because we have a very solid architecture. And the foundation, the architecture itself brings in the combo, and that makes the businesses to go into the digital transformation. All right, so this is the thing, like you manage everything from the vManage. That's what we call the controller that we have. So you go into the vManage, that's a single dashboard. We'll go into that and we'll actually demo it, like how things are done and then what actually it provides. And you can manage the whole environment from there. That's how it is done. So yeah, I mean, the points that we have covered is that like, yeah, you need to make sure that security is in place whenever you make a decision. Nowadays, security is the most important component. And this is the conversation that we have all the time with our customers. And we need to make sure that it meets the requirements of our customers, the end users, the application performance that they have, and finally, the simplicity, because we need to make sure that our networks are able to, like transform the way we want to, because businesses are moving fast. The requirements are changing really fast. So we need to make sure that our underlying foundation, the network that we have, is capable to adapt to those changes. So yes, this is a intent-based network, and it's a smart network. It's a system that actually talks together. It learns from each other. It has a consistent overview of like the whole thing that we have. So this is the platform this is the thing that we will be able to give it to our customers, and then they will be able to, like move their business to the next level. So that's what we have to do, in order to achieve those sort of things that our customers are looking to achieve. So yes, I mean, some of the benefits that Cisco SD-WAN brings, and most commonly it actually is talked about, like if you Google and see like what is SD-WAN benefits, most of the important thing they will tell you is the WAN cost reduction. It's actually true. It's that like you'll be able to use your cheaper bandwidths, cheaper tunnels and interfaces, and then you'll be able to, like reduce the cost. That's true, definitely true.
Yeah.
But the other thing that it brings, the most important thing it brings is that it makes your network very simplified to consume.
Yeah, and I guess from an efficiency point of view, right, you're making the operation of your network and the management of your network a lot more efficient.
Yep.
But you're also using your transport, your links, a lot more efficient, right? Because you might have primary and backup links. And I always use the term backup links as almost like insurance. You pay a monthly fee for it and a yearly fee for that, and you might not be using that. So with SD-WAN, we can use the primary and the backup links simultaneously and in a smart way based on the application, not on some IP address and source port or destination port.
Exactly. That's the power of it. Like, it's more consumable. Like, for humans, it's easier to remember names.
Yeah.
But it's hard to remember numbers. Like, if I have to remember Andoni with his phone number, it would have been really hard for me.
And my name is not easy anyway. So.
Yeah, but still, yeah, that's the thing. Like, it's easier for us to consume. And with all the foundations being there, we just make it easier for our customers to consume it. And then that makes their digital transformation to the multi-cloud environment easier.
Perfect.
So yes, I mean, SD-WAN is an investment that actually will meet the requirements of the future. And we have seen in the industry, like in all the verticals, like example, like retail. So let me give you an example, like of the retail environment. What happens is that, like in a retail environment, you have to really move to the market really fast.
Yes.
So let's say, for example, you want to bring up a branch network. It becomes very complex because in the traditional way, you need to send someone with a CCIE to the branch and then configure the network and device and connect it to that way. But with SD-WAN, it becomes very easy. Like, you just ship the router to the branch and then connect the branch to the internet. That's it.
Yes.
I mean, from the branch perspective, that's it. It's so easy to do that. And we're going to do the same thing in the demonstration later on. And we're going to show like how easy it is to, like deploy, bring up a new branch. It's so simple as that.
Perfect.
Yep. So let's move on to the demo section. So we'll just, for the purpose of demonstration that we're going to use is that over here you can see that we have a network of 4 different branches we have. And all the sites are actually connected through internet and MPLS. So let me show that how the connections are done. So each of the sites over here are actually going to have a connection to the internet and MPLS. So over here in this environment, we have like 7 different routers that is connected. And we have, let's see the description of them. So I will be referring back to this diagram. So let me show the demonstration that I was talking to Andoni about and you about that, how easy it is to deploy a branch router. How simple is that? So in this environment, we are assuming that this router on the bottom right corner, branch to VH1 router. So this router has been shipped to the environment, and then we're going to bring that up. We're going to connect it to the fabric that we have. So let's go to the dashboard, and let's look at how vManage looks like also. So this is how vManage looks like. So this is the single place where you go in and then configure everything that you have.
Yes.
So over here you can see that like all the details about your inventory in your environment, what you have. Like you have like tools, vSmarts, VHs, dbones, and stuff like that. What are the environments that you have? So VHs are our routers that we have. So in the environment I just showed you, there are like there are 7 routers there.
Yes.
But we can currently see that there are only 6 VHs that are up. And you can see that there are 7 routers that you have in your inventory. So when you order it from Cisco to the partners, then they will enter the information for you. And then when you bring it up, you'll be able to see that how many of them are, like in your inventory and how many of them are you have to deploy.
Excellent.
So you get all the details about all the things in this concise, nice way of the view. So it's a very organic fashion. So you can see all the information, the related information about your WAN network over here. So for example, like you can see all the like what is your health of all the VHs or the routers that you have, like what is going on with them. You can actually see what's their users and stuff like that over here. And if you look at that, like this system is, as I mentioned, that this is a whole system. So it can actually show you what are the, what's going on within your network. You don't have to go into individual boxes or something like that to, to see what's going on within your network. It's a single complete dashboard where you can see everything. So it's a single pane of glass for your WAN network.
Yeah, and I guess for end customers, if we are managing their environment, there is a level of transparency that is gained because they also get access to this channel. They can actually see what we see when we manage the environment. Again, there might be some reduced usage because obviously if we let you play with the tool, virtual and SLA, right? But again, transparent. What you see, what we're seeing, and what's happening with your network is available for both parties.
Yeah, definitely.
Excellent.
And you might be asking a question as, hey, Ashra, I have a customer who uses their SNMP servers and then the traditional way of doing the, network monitoring tools that they have. Do they throw all those things away, or if they acquire Viptela? The answer is no. Whatever you see on this dashboard is done through API. So all the configuration, monitoring, controlling, policy-based automation, and everything that you do is done through APIs. So you can integrate with your existing platforms to, to do that. So whatever we do over here, you can actually make your own, like Python scripts or whatever you want to do, and then, do the managing from here. So that's the beauty of it. So I will just give you an overview of the dashboard before I go and bring up the branch, how easy it is to done. So you just look at that, like the dashboard. So you can see that over here it's a very organized in a very organic fashion. So you can view a network from a perspective of a geographical point of view, where your routers are sitting at physically. You can view them from the network perspective, like how they're connected and all those sort of stuff. You can also see the alarms and events. You might be asking, like, what is the difference between alarms and events? Yeah. So it's something like, events is something where all the things that happens, right? Yeah. So it's like the customers will be getting a whole lot of
user logged in, there was a change of passwords, so on and so forth. So,
yeah, exactly. So, but sometimes you don't need to see all of them. You just need to see some critical things, like, okay, my branch router has gone down. That's an alarm, right? Like 100 of my users are down. That's an alarm. So SD-WAN actually differentiates between an alarm, between a event. So this is a very organic way of doing it. And if you see the dashboard is that in the configuration part, you can actually see that there are devices. So you can actually see what are the devices that you have, and certification. So certification is a very important concept of it. We want to make sure that your network is secure. Nobody from outside, because it's very easy to deploy a branch. So nobody from outside can just connect to your internet and then get access to your fabric. We shouldn't do that. So we need to make sure that every individual devices within your environment is secure, and they do the security part of it. And templates is the part where we do all the configurations and push it down to all the routers down there. So all the configurations, like if you want to assign a system IP address or whatever, like a AAA server or something like that, you configure it from the templates and then go push it down. And finally, the policies are somewhere you define your business intents. Where you say something like, okay, I want to prioritize my Office 365 application performance for all the routers. You just define the intent, and Cisco SD-WAN takes that, vManage takes that, push it down all the routers, and they implement that as a system.
Perfect.
So this is a simple overview of the dashboard and where you get most of the information. So let's go back to the diagram that we had over here. Is that you have a branch router via to VH1. I'm just going to bring that up. So what we're going to do is that, because this is a demo environment, so what we have done is that, like, we have the router that is a virtual machine that is already brought up. But what we're going to do is that, like, we're going to do a no-shut. So that is like, bringing up that physical interface that is already connected to the internet. So it will we just shutting down. So it's simply like, plug the internet connection to the router. And that's what exactly we're going to do.
So in essence, we're going to simulate someone coming in with an Ethernet cable, put it into that port, and bringing up the branch.
Exactly. That's what it is.
Let's take a look.
So we're going to go to the SSH, and then what we're going to do is that we're just going to do a configuration on the interface itself, and then so the G/0/0 is the interface that is connected to the internet. So we're going to do a no-shut for that. Let's do a commit. The commit is complete. And so now what is happening is that, like, we just connected the router to the internet. It was powered up. And then what will happen is that, like, you'll be able to see the router brought up over here. It will take some time because it will go through the authentication process of bringing up the whole router. So let's go back to the diagram that I had over here. Is that now all the VH, once it boots up, it looks for the like the controller. Where is my controller? Once it finds. So as long as it's a DHCP, it can find the DHCP, and then in a public IP address, it will be able to look for where is my controller. And once they find the controller, they authenticate themselves with their organization name and the chassis number, and they have a module inside them to like the certificates within it, and then they authenticate themselves to the controller of your organization, and then, like brings them up. So it takes a couple of minutes to get that thing done, the process, because we want to make sure that all the devices within your environment are your devices.
Yeah, and I guess in this kind of like authentication process, the device will go and say, I belong to this organization ID. Can you please tell me who's my controller? Once I get there, it's all right, you validated the organization ID. Now we're going to go through what your certificate is, and if you're actually, we know what your serial ID is, and if all of those checks are met, then we're allowed to start talking and authenticating each other, so the device will authenticate the vBond and vice versa, and then you start authentication with the other controllers such as vSmart and vManage.
Yeah, exactly.
And once those are all validated, that's when you should see that device coming up now as deployed and part of the SD-WAN network.
Exactly, that's what exactly it is. All right, so let's go and see whether we have the VH that we already deployed. So you can see, the 7 devices that you have. So you have 7 devices in your network, and the branch network is just brought up. So that's how simple it is to bring up a device. And then you can push your configurations if you want to. Then from the one single place, you don't need to send people over, like thousands of miles just to bring up one device.
And we could have shipped the device with a 4G card, right?
Yep.
And then once they power cycle that device becomes part of the network. And then if for any reason there is a fiber build or there is an infrastructure upgrade that needs to take place to bring an MPLS connection or an internet connection into that branch, we already know that the branch is accessing the network, then we can just enable that link when it's available.
Yeah, that's a powerful benefit for a lot of customers that we have.
Right.
All right, let's move on to the next part where we're going to talk about the Cloud on-Ramp for SaaS. So
Yes.
we have been talking about, like Salesforce, Office 365, and all those sort of applications that are available on the cloud. And we have put a lot of discussion at the beginning of this webinar where we talked about like how important it is to,
Yes.
like have those sort of things. So let's see a scenario where you have like a remote site. If you see in the screen, we have a remote site with like 2 different ISP connections. And then they are connected directly to the internet, let's say.
Okay.
And what happens is that like one of the ISP is bad, and then the router will be able to choose the the interface that connects to the other ISP, and that has a better performance.
Okay.
And it will automatically transport the traffic from there to the other ISP. That's how it is easy. And you can do that in a simple, like in a traditional WAN network. But I'm going to show you like how easy it is, even though you have like thousands of devices in your network.
Yeah.
With few clicks, how you can do that. So that's how easy it is.
Perfect.
And on top of that, let's look at another scenario. Like, okay, in a remote site, you have one ISP connection to the internet, and you have an MPLS connection that connects to your data center. Let's say you have decided, okay, all my, Office 365, Salesforce, connections will go through the internet. Your MPLS is sitting down there, but for some reason, one day the internet connection is bad from that remote site. But the internet connection from the data center is really good, and that's getting a good service from the, from the internet and the SaaS applications. Imagine if your router could decide, okay, why don't I just, put my traffic through the MPLS to the data center? That is pretty good, and we have a better connection from there. And if my overall performance is good, then I will just do it from, from the MPLS itself. So that's a beautiful, powerful thing that we have. Like, imagine like doing that. I mean, you can do that. Like, if you have a CCIE and then you have worked a lot with the, the routing devices, you can do that. But imagine if you want to do that for thousands of branches, hundreds, even tens of branches, it's going to take like days to do that.
Very true.
Yeah, so let's see how it is done on Viptela SD-WAN. So,
and we're doing all those changes just because we're experiencing some performance issues with the carrier. So we need to deploy someone to fix that up and then deploy them again to revert back.
No, that's how
that
it
doesn't sound simple at all.
So what we're going to do is that let's look at how Cisco SD-WAN does it. So over here on the screen, if you can see that we have a couple of applications that are already configured over here.
Yes.
And then like Oracle or like Dropbox and things like that. Let's see, we have a new application that came in.
Perfect.
So what we're going to do, we just signed up for, let's say our customer signed up for Salesforce.
Okay.
So what you're going to do is that from the network administrator perspective, so this is the simplicity.
Okay.
So what they're going to do is that add an application and VPN. So what they're going to do is they're like, okay, I have acquired Salesforce. I mean, I have got Salesforce subscription. Let's do Salesforce. So you just click, because SD-WAN has the capability to understand the applications as well.
Okay.
So you just have to define it in the application name and just define, like, okay, what are the VPNs? I have like multiple VPNs there. Maybe one corporate, guest Wi-Fi, and things like that. Where do I want this application to be faster? Maybe I just want to make it sure that our corporate users are, having the ability to do that. So let's say corporate VPN 10, and then you just click add and save changes. And it will go through the schedule where, it will push down all the routers.
Yeah.
So you can actually see over here that what's going on. You can actually get the details of when they're going through the process, it's actually connecting to the vManage and then pushing down and making sure that the steps are going down. So you get the details over here as well, sorry.
And in this example is that we have 4 locations, right? We have those 2 data centers and we have the 2 branches.
Yeah.
And if we had 1,000 locations, then what you just did is actually being pushed down to every single location from this one interaction that you have with the system.
Yeah, definitely. And you can actually choose that, okay, some of the branches I don't want to put, some of the branches I want to put. You can actually choose those branches and then push down. Yeah, that's how simple it is.
Okay.
So let me see that whether we have done this part with if that has been validated. So it has gone through some of the processes, and then it will, it takes a couple of minutes to push down, because if you have multiple places, the routers, it needs to talk to them and then push down all the way to that.
So from a digital transformation point of view, and having definitely a solid network foundation, is that in the event that we get a new direction from our CIO or from the business, that we need to adopt a new technology or a new application, these applications happens to sit somewhere in the internet, then rather than worrying about how we're going to do all the plumbing to make it happen, we simply type for the application, define the VPNs or the different VPNs that are going to be, and then we decide what locations are going to be involved with this application, and we push that through.
Shut down, and then that's how it's done. So it's as simple as that, exactly.
Okay.
And that brings a lot of benefits. So this is so we can see that over here we have our application Salesforce already connected, and it is only activated in one of the sites.
Yeah, so 6 devices.
6 devices. So if I want to, if I go back, and then if I want to, direct internet access sites, so let's say if I go there, so site 300 is the site that we were talking about here. If I go back to the diagram that we have, so site 300 is this site, the VH2, which we just brought up.
Perfect.
So that's the site, and then if we want to add that site to the, attached DIS site, we just plus, and then this is site, sorry, that was actually 400, not 300. So 300 is the other side.
Yep.
Sorry about that.
That's all right.
And then you can actually click the interfaces that you want to, which is connected to the internet. So
which is the one that we brought up. Yeah.
Save changes. And yep, it's pushing down. So now your branch 2 is going to be connected to the internet as well. And then the policy of Salesforce having this benefit of the scenario that we were talking about. So if there is a, we have one MPLS connection and one internet connection, so if it has to go, it will take the best route for the performance. So
perfect.
It can improve the performance, that's the thing, it will give you the optimum performance.
Or if you need to have an application that breaks out locally from the branch straight into the internet, you can actually deploy that very easily.
Awesome.
Right.
So let's move on to the other part. So the application-aware topologies, so that's what we're going to talk about. So everything we talk now is about applications.
Yes.
Without the applications, there is the WAN, no matter how good it is, no matter how much bandwidth it is, if it doesn't provide the needs and meets the requirements of the applications, they're no use.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's as simple as that. So with Cisco SD-WAN, it's very simple to, deploy. So we have 5 different routers, and we have different, different topologies for different applications. We can we can create them with a simple click of a button.
Okay.
It's as simple as that. And then you have the proper segmentation. For example, you have acquired a new company, maybe, or merged with a different company. So you still want to do the segmentation. So you imagine creating a VPN, all the IPsec tunnels, it takes a long time.
Yes.
And you also need to involve the, like your ISP providers to, do those sort of things. So, but it will be easier if you can do it from one single place in a very consistent way.
Yes.
Remember the point, like, it's secure.
Yes.
We have to, like, when you can see the whole thing, you can secure it even in a more efficient way. So that's how it's as simple as that. So let's look at the demonstration where we have, so it's already been pushed down. So what I'm gonna demo is that let's go to the network side of it. So in this network, what we have configured is that it's going to be a full mesh topology.
Yes.
Right. So full mesh topology. So that means that, like, if I go to the router, so let's maybe do some troubleshooting over here. Let me simulate some trace routes. So trace route, we're going to see like how the traffic is flowing through.
Okay. And yeah, exactly. What path is the packet following?
Yeah. What path is the traffic following? So let's see the destination IP address. That's 10.3.2.1 and VPN number 10. And stop. So let me just give you the overview of the diagram that we had over here. Going back to this diagram. So what we're doing is that, like, we are trace routing from BRVH1
yes.
to BRVH, this network,
okay.
and how the hop goes on.
Yes.
So from the trace route, you can see that it goes through only one hop, that's 10.3.0.2. So that is the router that we have over here.
Okay.
So it just directly connects there.
Perfect.
Right? But what if you want to deploy a policy? Okay, I want to make sure that all the traffic goes through the data center.
Yes. Before
it goes through somewhere else.
Okay.
If that's a policy, right? And you can apply that for a specific application. If you can do that, that's amazing, right? Like that's.
Yes. Or you need to make sure that a certain application goes through a firewall or
something.
Okay.
Yeah. So those are the business requirements, and then you need to make sure that happens. So let's go to the policy section. So where you define all your policies. So we have already created a hub and spoke topology.
Yes.
That's already created. So let's activate that. Let me activate that. So while it's getting activated, so it's going through the process of pushing it down to all the pages, and you'll be able to know like what has been done.
And now, from a controller point of view, I can actually see on the screen that there were actually two controllers where that particular new command has been pushed out.
Yeah.
Right. So it's you're actually pushing both configurations into the primary and the redundant side. So you don't need to worry about, oh, I need to log in here, make sure that this one's aware of what I've just done over there.
Yep.
That's fantastic.
Exactly. So it just syncs with each other. Good. So let's see, like, I just pushed down a policy that I have created for the time purpose, and I just wanted to show you that how easy it is to create a VPN.
Perfect.
So over here, if I go to this configuration and if I go to the service VPN, so if you want to create a VPN, you just click a button and then choose a VPN. You can create a template to, like, create a VPN, what are the sites that are going to be in the VPN. So you just put the name of the VPN and then, create that VPN. So it's a couple of steps, and then you're done.
Okay.
That's the thing. So I just want to leave it like that. So let's go back and see whether it has impacted the way we have changed. So creating a VPN is a couple of clicks of buttons, and that's it. So let's go back to the network side, and let's see page one, the one that we have created. So troubleshooting, trace route. So we're going to do the same trace route, and 10.3.0.0.21, VPN 10. So now you can see that there is a extra hop that came in. So now it is going through the data center because we just applied a policy that I have created previously. It's pretty simple, straightforward.
Perfect.
Not a creative policy.
So we just changed topology within seconds.
Within seconds.
Okay.
And that's how, as simple as that. And you can apply that for different applications, for different segments of your network. It becomes like a powerful tool to do that.
Okay.
So let's move on to the other part of the demonstration where we're going to show the application-aware routing. I mean, it's something that is very powerful, and that is something that can be still done. Oh, sorry about that. I just started from the beginning of the presentation. I will just go back where I started from. All right.
So we've looked at the application topologies. So now we look at application-aware routing, and what does that mean?
Yeah, exactly. What does it mean? Like,
perfect.
So this is a network that we have. We just discussed about it. So now let's focus on the branch 2. Let's see. We go back to the branch 2 where it's connected to the internet.
Yes.
Let's say you have a policy that, okay, all the FTP connections that we have, file transfer protocol, has to go through MPLS.
Yes.
right? That's the policy that you have defined. But what if the MPLS is bad? Like you want to move it to internet.
Yes.
To do that, it will take a long period of time.
They will have to go in and make
do
the
whole
changes.
changes for
Yeah.
every router. If you have to imagine that you have like hundreds of branches doing the same thing, would be very difficult to.
Very true.
Very troublesome, and it would be error prone. So
Yeah.
what we have done is that, so what we're going to do is that in this environment, what will happen is that like we will create a policy where the traffic will go through the MPLS for a specific application, and then we will, we'll add some latency, high latency on the MPLS run, and we'll see how it reacts to the traffic when we, when we have a high latency on the MPLS. Can it use the internet? That's the scenario that we're going to do. So that's one of the examples. It's more like, let me give you an analogy to that. It's something like, every morning you wake up, and then every day you go to work, and there are like multiple paths to go there, right?
Yeah.
Like you have a tollway, you have a, like suburban path, or you have a highway. Sometimes, most of the morning, maybe you're thinking that, okay, tollway today is great, like you just, it's a fastest way there to get to office. But maybe something is happening, maybe there was a crash, or maybe there was something, like rain or something, and then the tollway is not the best way.
Okay.
Then maybe some other route could be better. So SD-WAN is something that, it will be able to provide you the best application performance.
So it will sense if the application can perform,
Yeah.
and if a particular SLA is not met, it will change the route automatically.
Automatically.
Okay.
Awesome. That's awesome. And let me do this demonstration
Let's have
for
a
you.
look.
So we're going to do create a policy. Okay. So it's very simple to do that, like few buttons or clicks. So you can actually define your applications in classes. You can define your, like sites, all the sites of DC1 and how you're going to define. You can define your application SLA classes. For example, like voice SLA, you have like loss and jitter, 50 milliseconds and stuff like that, and you can actually define all the VPNs that you have. For example, like corporate VPN is, it's a name. So let's create a policy. So we're not going to change any topology. We're just going to do it for the policy like.
Perfect.
So let's add a policy, create new, and then we create sync and then sequence. So what we're going to do is that we can actually define the application class.
Yeah.
For the purpose of demonstration, I'm going to use a protocol call protocol. So let's say we use protocol 6 that defines the TCP.
Yeah.
And then we have a destination port number, let's say 20, that is the FTP.
Perfect.
And then when this traffic matches this criteria, we're going to take some actions. So we're going to say that, okay, if it matches this description, and then make sure that it matches the voice SLA
Yes.
criteria. So that is 50 milliseconds. So, and the primary path will be MPLS.
Okay.
All right, we click that MPLS, and then we want to set a backup path. That would be internet. So we have biz over here, biz internet. So that is the one that we have named our, and we match, save in action. All right, okay, this, so we just need to name this policy. So let's say FTP priority and description FTP.
Yep.
All right. Save application route and policy. All right, and then we move on to the next section where we want to name the policy itself, the whole policy that we're going to deploy. Let's say FTP1 policy. So we just put some description over there, and then we gotta apply now that what are the sites you're gonna apply this policy to. So that's the thing. What are the sites you're gonna apply policy to? Let's say we want to apply to all the branches that we have.
Yes.
So that's branch 1 and branch 2. We don't want to apply this to maybe the data center.
Of course.
And then we click that, okay, what is the VPN that you're going to apply it to now? So this is the granularity level that you can go down to. So that's the corporate VPN, that's VPN number 10.
Yes.
And then we save policy. Oh, I need to add that. So all branches, and then click save policy. So this policy has been saved. Now let's push it down to all the routers, activate. So once we click it down, so we have.
So again, that policy, if we had thousands of locations, that's been taken care of.
That's been taken care of. Like you just select the number of devices that you want to, push it down to. That's it.
Perfect.
Sorry. So we go back to the router. Let's say BR to VH1. That's the branch 2 router. And then we go here and troubleshoot. And then now we can simulate a flow. So let's simulate a flow. This is for VPN number 10. We choose an interface, and then source IP address is that. So let's send the traffic to the VPN 3, so that is the site number 3 that we have, 91. And let's define protocol number 6, and then destination port is 20.
Yep.
Simulate. So we would expect that like this traffic to go through the internet, and then it is going through the internet at this point in time. But we can actually change the policy over here by like adding some latency over here. All right. Oops.
So at the moment
Sorry.
At the moment it's using the internet. So
at this moment
yep.
it's using the internet. We just created the policy. I think let me just go back here. We have like 7 minutes on hand at this point in time.
Yeah.
So let me just check that the policy that we just created. So once we create the policy, and then we just go to the edit part of it. So all branches, all application, and then traffic rules.
So actually the policy that you created has actually been applied because there is latency being experienced. So rather than taking the MPLS path that was defined, it's actually already it's already using the internet.
The internet to do that, because the latency over there is it should be much higher. All right, yeah. So
from this perspective, you can actually start defining applications and their topology and different set of rules. So when something's not going right. The fabric will make the decisions on its own.
On its own, yeah. So it will change the traffic routes to make sure that your application performance is met, and it will choose the best one.
Yes.
So that's how it's done. Yeah.
Excellent.
So yeah, I will pass the ball to you now for sharing some stories about your customers.
Perfect. So thank you for that, Ashra. And as I mentioned at the beginning of the session, we've been working since the inception of Viptela in Australia. And, the customer success story that I want to share with you today is actually the customer's name is Jeans West. So very quickly, the topology was a legacy IPsec VPN across 220 retail stores, both in Australia and New Zealand. They've got a small IT staff. They've got major performance issues because it's really, really a hub and spoke network with backbones and more hub and spoke, and it's a big mess, or it was a big mess. They have no visibility application. CIO business is saying we need to adopt Office 365, SharePoint, Skype for Business, and so on and so forth. They had no redundancy. And the next requirement was IP telephony. With the inception of NBN in Australia, there will be a time where no more copper lines or ISDN lines will be available. Everyone will have to go into a SIP kind of infrastructure in order to support voice. So the solution that NTT, after we went in and had a conversation and we look at the application and the business outcome, is that we deploy a Cisco SD-WAN and we combine both internet and 4G. We also implemented application-aware routing because majority of these locations are using asymmetrical links like ADSL and asymmetrical NBN services. So you cannot deploy quality of service, and these services will oscillate in terms of SLA, in terms of loss jitter, and the bandwidth as well, because we're also sharing that infrastructure with anyone within the location. So what we went ahead is that we look at deploying application we're running. If the main link's not working, you can actually send non-mission critical applications on the 4G path and leave the ADSL for voice. They got their hosted IP telephony, but most important of all, they've got one provider doing the full management. The full managed solution was provided by NTT. They now have higher network redundancy and efficiency. They leverage redundancy to 4G. We can spin up sites a lot quicker because we're using 4G in order to deploy, and then we get the main link. And now they've got a robust platform ready for business. And the next journey that they're taking is now pushing all their workloads into Microsoft Azure, and their head office will become just another branch. So this is very powerful for them. So why NTT? And why NTT when it comes to SD-WAN? We've gone to the market, we look at this technology as being something that has to be simple, that has to provide quality of experience, and it also has to pave the way into digital transformation. If you're going to do that as a business, then you either have to have the skills and the team, or you either have to have the appetite for risk in order to do it on your own. So when we looked at how can we help businesses, we adopted and we've gone to market with 3 different models. The first one is very straightforward. It's network as a service, where NTT actually goes out and look at both the transport, so meaning MPLS, Ethernet links, point-to-point, internet-based, 4G, and so on and so forth. And then we also build the overlay using the Cisco SD-WAN fabric. The second offering that we got in the market and that we have also experience with is that, you know what, if you already have an agreement and a buying power with your existing provider, or you have a plan where you're going to approach different providers and take care of that, then you can bring your own network. Like we bring our own devices to the office where we allow customers to bring their own network, and then we actually provide the management overlay of the SD-WAN. And then last but not least, in the event that there is a customer that says, you know what, I've got the team, I've got the CCIEs, I've got the resources to deploy my network, then we get involved, we help them define those application-aware overlays, we source out the right gear, the right licensing, and with that, they deploy the infrastructure, and then we walk away and let them run their own business. Now, why NTT? First of all, we actually have defined a framework in order to help businesses adopt their digital transformation without the barriers of networks and the barriers of technology. So the first thing we do, we always go in and we do a discovery session and design session. And as we've been talking throughout the whole day, it's all around the application. So when it comes to the application, we look at the application as the main thing we need to support. We then start looking at the migration to support. And one of the key things from NTT is that we are carrier agnostic. So what does that mean? We're not bound to a carrier. We're just going to look at the best possible carrier and combination of carriers in order to achieve the deployment of the network. It's a fully managed service. We present it in a single contract with very simple SLAs. We will deploy the application-aware topologies and configurations. Zero Trust is automatic encryption, end-to-end, and it keeps rotating the encryption every 2 hours. And the best thing is that what we're talking earlier when we're looking at that vManage, customers will get the visibility, will get the control, but also get the transparency that what they're getting from the provider is what they sign up for. So that brings us to the end of the day. You know, we've covered a quick introduction on SD-WAN. We also talk about the architecture overview, did a demo on how you can start leveraging the power of SD-WAN when adopting your cloud or your digital transformation. And you're seeing why NTT and Cisco we're both a safe pair of hands when it comes to adopting the cloud, digital transformation with confidence, and without compromising your overall security. So once again, thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much, Ashraf.
Thank you very much.
And if you're looking or contemplating and adopting SD-WAN, please reach out to us. And remember, the video from today and the slides will be available within the next 24 hours. Once again, thank you very much for your time, and enjoy the rest of your day or night, wherever you are. Thank you very much. Thank you.